Does Gen Z feel optimistic about their future? We asked them if trust in government is getting in the way of a bright path ahead on Politics IRL.
I'm personally grieving my future and at the same time angry about it because I feel like there's so much division in the country right now. There's no, like shaking of the hands from the aisle and across party lines. So I just don't think that the government is going to come together and actually work on legislation that's going to benefit the American people right now. And I'm concerned about how far that's going to continue. I don't just think it's the Trump administration or Republicans. I also think there's a lot of issue with Democrats as well. I think that the Harris campaign was one of the biggest balls that they have dropped in decades. And it's just, I really don't know what's going to happen. I just feel like it's a very confusing time for our generation to actually figure out what's going on and how we are as a generation in society in general, how we interact with one another. Because at the end of the day, Gen Z is still mainly young adults just growing into the world and becoming less naive. So because of that, we haven't really had our awakening yet.
I do choose to have hope, actually, in the future. And it is specifically because of the people who are willing to stand up and speak up to the issues that concern us all most. So when I go to a protest at the Boston Common, and I am with thousands of my neighbors and community members who are there to call out a person in the Oval Office who is starting to believe he is some wannabe king. And when I see people out there fighting that, that does actually give me hope. It gives me hope that there are still people out here who care about our democracy. When I see people getting into fields for the right reasons to solve the issues that face all of us, that does give me hope. What does not give me hope is Donald Trump, is a lot of these Republicans in Congress who choose to cut and slash and harm rather than help and uplift and encourage people.
So Trump takes away your hope.
Absolutely.
As a Republican, does Trump give you hope?
I think the fact that people voted for him in any capacity shows me that people are looking at issues from the perspective that I would like to look at them from. That being said, I said it recently, but the kind of old generation that is still running things, they're still running things from the perspective of the previous century. And I think that we are entering a completely different time. The times are not, the values of yesterday are kind of, people believe in them because it's a comfort, they are used to them. And I think that there's a lot of things that are going to change so drastically about our day-to-day interactions with even ourselves and then the infrastructure that we've constructed that I can't even say that anyone who is of his age, even though I overtly support him, is going to be able to see what needs to be done or be creative enough to provide a new solution. That said, I do see a lot of young people my age agreeing with me on many things, and I see in their eyes a sort of a vigor, a desire to build something new, to believe in something beautiful again, and that does make me excited because yes, the times are tumultuous, yes, things are uncertain and unstable, but at the same time, like in times of chaos, opportunity is always bred, and I think the right people with the right constitution, of character, are very capable of doing things that would make me optimistic in these times. You wanted to say something?
Yeah, forgive me if I'm wrong, but you're Democratic leaning, correct?
Yeah, I'm a Democrat.
You seem to point that the Trump administration is the one that's causing some of these issues within our generation and the governing. But I want to know what's your perspective on the Democrats and what the Democrats are doing in their own party and if they're actually fighting the good fight, because I don't really see them doing that. I think that Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, they should be fired.
And I happen to agree on that. I think that Democrats need to be looking around the country at a whole host of things, right? I think 2024 was its own wake-up call. And I think we've seen that, the recent video of Chuck Schumer going we will win, kind of unenthusiastically at a press conference. That is not what people need right now. I happen to be more energized and excited by folks like AOC, like Ayanna Pressley, Zohran Mamdani, these folks who are bringing this new energy back to public service and back to politics that I hope people see. And so absolutely, does the Democratic Party have its flaws and things that we need to work on? 110%. However, when I look, let's take Congress for example, at those two sides of the aisle, I can tell you on a number of votes, the 200 plus people who voted to pass the big, beautiful, big, ugly, whatever you want to call it, bill that I grew up because of SNAP benefits, because of WIC benefits, because of Mass Health. My father passed away when I was 3 months old in a car accident. When my single mom needed those services to keep our family alive because the main source of income just went away, and in that rebuilding moment for our family, those are the programs I relied on. There are now hundreds of thousands of families across the country that will not have those same benefits because of what they just passed. And so when I look at those two sides of the aisle, I look at one side voted for that, and the other side opposed it vigorously through filibuster, through hour-long speeches, and through doing a lot of what they could. I think Democrats 110% always need to be doing more. As a young person, I think that, but I think they're doing a way better job than Republicans.
I mean, I just think that the Democrats, and I also think the Republicans at the same time, I don't think they're listening to the protests. I don't think they're listening to the younger voice. I mean, we're crying out in hunger in the streets. We're not getting bread, we're not getting roses, we're not getting anything from where we are politically right now. It's just a deadlock. No one wants to agree on anything or make any sort of compromise. It's disgusting and a disgrace to the American people that they actually are putting their own egos as politicians over helping the benefit of their constituents. Last time I checked, constituents voted you in to office. And even if they didn't vote you in, I still believe that those people have a voice and a right to representation, and that those people in their districts for Congress, they should be allowed to have a voice whether or not that person voted for the politician.
I do find it interesting that regardless of your political orientation, what everyone wants, or at least what young people want everywhere, is a new energy. Everyone's so tired of the same old thing that just clearly doesn't work, and it runs on its own momentum, and it produces results that are at best underwhelming. And I just find it to be an interesting point that you and I have completely different views, I'd imagine, and we probably disagree on many things, probably agree on some things as well, but what everyone seems to want is something new, something that is not beholden to the old kind of moorings of the previous ruling political class. Because you're disappointed in your party, I want my party to be doing more, so there's clearly a demand for it. Where is the people who are going to come and bring that energy that actually excites people?
Do you think your party represents you?
In ways, yes. In ways, no. I think the part of my views that it doesn't represent, I think, is I'm less of a traditionalist in the way that most conservatives are. I think that while it is important to know your roots, know who you are, know your country's history, and value all that, I think you can get very easily caught in yesteryear. You can get caught in the past, and then it's completely unattractive to young people. I think a lot of young people, as we saw, voted for Trump because they thought that there was some hope there of something new. But Republicans for decades have just been running the same old tired points of, your community, your church, and all this. And sure, none of that is bad within and of itself, but gridlocking people in that time frame, I think, is going to leave us a little kind of empty-handed for what's coming tomorrow. As I said earlier, is totally unknown. It's going to be a new age completely.
One other question I have is, do you think that the younger generation politicians like AOC, for example, are they going to actually stay in power, though, or are they going to be voted out of office? Because I don't see the Democrats supporting the younger politicians. I think that the Democrats are kind of shooting themselves in the foot because they want seasoned politicians to be in office, and they want people who agree to their talking points. I think that both parties want yes men and yes women, so I just don't think that.
I think I want to separate two things really quick. There is the DNC, and there are the Democrats in the communities every day that I know. And that I've gotten to know, that I'm friends with, that I talk with. That is probably the DNC's focus. However, I do think AOC will stay in power, and I think that's why she's run re-election multiple times without overwhelming support from Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer or from establishment Democrats. Why does she win so many times? Because she has the people on her side. She proved that when she unseated Joe Crowley. And I think we're seeing a number of people do that across the country, that when they actually go and they speak with people and they are talking about the solutions and the visions that people across the country, regardless of their backgrounds, have been waiting for and have been looking for with the new energy that people are looking for, that is what's popular. That is what people are looking for. I do not think you need to have a political party's national committee behind you to make effective change and to be a leader in this moment. And you know, when we're talking about new things, I also find it interesting. I've heard from a lot of folks, because I'm absolutely always willing to speak with Republicans and people who I disagree with, who bring up new so much around Donald Trump, but he's not. He served for 4 years as president before this most previous election. So why, it's something that I, you know, am trying to grapple with and that I'm baffled by a little bit, why people expected anything new from somebody who already showed you who he was and who came in with something like Project 2025 that showed you how he was gonna go even further within the extremism of what he did in his first administration. That doesn't symbolize new to me.
Trump was people on my side's best shot. You know, he is objectively, when you ask the question of, oh, okay, well, how is that new? What else would be the alternative? I look at the rest of the Republican constituency and none of it excites me. Like, there's literally nothing exciting about the vast majority of the political candidates who would even have the kind of the constitution of character for office. Yes, Trump has his flaws, and there was things that many people on the right would have wanted more from him. And to assume that it was going to be completely new and fresh, I don't think anyone assumed that. I think, like I said before, politics in this age is, as it always has been, but very much in this age, is about compromises. And I think people kind of just like, all right, this is our best shot at anything different right now. Even if it's not totally new, at least it would be different. So that's kind of an explanation to that. I hope that makes any amount of sense.
I think that we have the same issue in DC that we do on Beacon Hill. Politicians refuse to grow a spine and actually speak up for the constituents. They're always just listening to yes men. They're always just listening to lobbyists. They're listening to all these other people instead of the people's voice themselves. And that is just disgraceful. Like, they shouldn't be doing that.
It seems like your hope for the future is anchored in government and in politics. How much do you trust the government?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to say, because in a way, with the way American power is structured, it changes every 4 years. You have new administrations come in, or 8 years if it goes for 2 terms. But things are always shifting, so you have to ask, okay, well, how does it stay concrete in any way? And that's, through agencies and 3-letter agencies having agency protocol. This is just what they do. And so it's hard to trust something where you really don't know who's accountable for every moving part. That's what I would say. It's a difficult thing to look at it and be like, okay, well, perhaps I trust this one branch, perhaps I trust what these guys are doing, but to say overall, or to trust that they just know what they're doing as a unit, I can't say that, no.
Is there any area of government that you trust versus one that you don't, that's clear to you? And if not, then not.
Yeah, I don't know if I can say off the top of my head. I'd have to think about that a bit. I'd like to hear what the other two think.
My trust for the government is dwindling, especially in a moment where we saw, Donald Trump's hand-picked Supreme Court give him presidential immunity over anything. That really hinders my trust for the executive branch right now, for the way that he also brought Elon Musk on to fire thousands of federal workers, got anything relating to diversity, equity, and inclusion from our Smithsonian museums that teach people about history. That gives me a lot of reason to question my trust for the government. I think you also need to remember that there are a lot of people elected to Congress, elected president, or at all levels of government who have big industries and corporate PACs in their back pocket, and that they listen to and report to the fossil fuel industry. They listen to and report to Big Pharma and to all these other major industries and corporations more than they report to the people that elected them, to their own constituents. And so that does really call into question my trust for some of the people that we have in power and in decision-making roles right now. That if they're not listening to their own constituents, if they're not listening to the people, but they're listening to what some CEO has to say. How much can we trust that?
I trust the government as far as I can throw the Bunker Hill Monument. I mean, politicians, there's a saying, if a politician opens their mouth, they're lying. I don't trust the government at all. Look at Karen Reed, that was a failure on the state level. Then there was Sean Diddy Combs, that was another failure. And Pam Bondi. Is the Epstein list on your desk or not? Give us a straight answer. Do not cover up for anyone. The American people deserve an answer because this was such a horrible thing. There were young children involved. And I do not know how anyone, especially high-ranking government officials, can let that slide when there's supposed to always be justice for the victims.
The Epstein files do seem to be a really big point in politics right now related to the trust in the government. This has ignited people on the left and the right and in between. Does the handling of the Epstein files by Trump lead either of you to mistrust the government more than you did before?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, when you have a dude in the Oval Office who this time around, ran on the fact that he would release the Epstein files, and then right before, maybe it would happen, then decides to pull the plug and to not do it, and to send his people out there to just try to gaslight everyone and pretend that they don't exist, that can only tell you one thing. I think that people are very correct to assume that he is in them, because why else would he squash that? Unless, I think, hey, if he would like to release them, if he would like to release that information and prove that he's not in them, go ahead. But I think the hesitancy there and the way that he has handled this, that the Justice Department has handled this, really points to the conclusion that what are you hiding? There's something being hidden. And I think that people are very correct to hold a lot of mistrust and to be incredibly concerned about why somebody who is in the Oval Office even has multiple photographs with this guy, and why he's not willing to release those files, even though he was so willing to release the MLK assassination files against the wishes of Martin Luther King Jr.'s family.
Yeah, well, what I'll say to that is I'm not gonna, I don't fall into the camp where I think that indicts him. I think there's probably a few more moving parts than that, especially considering the fact, I never hear this mentioned by leftists for some reason, is that he had a falling out with Epstein where he kicked him out of his clubs as soon as he got enough complaints from his other members that this guy was doing God knows what. And I never hear this mentioned, especially with some of the photos that came out recently where they show them talking at a party in '99. He kicked him out in the early 2000s. So why is that part of the story never mentioned? What I will say is that it was clearly a mismanagement. There's no way of denying that there was an unintelligent move made in some capacity, because at the very end of the day, I understand where the left is coming from, where they say that, oh, that indicts him, because it either indicts him or it shows that he picked someone incompetent. That's one of the two things it means. And either way, if the question is trust in government, it brings the trust in government down. So I think, yeah, it definitely makes me more apprehensive about, going all in on the Trump admin. But I have, chosen my side of the river, and I'm not going to, pull back my support for him because of this. Let's say it was just mismanagement, and let's say it was just a falling out, and that there's, no reason for him to be guilty or anything. Yeah. Why wouldn't he release them? Why wouldn't he show the American people how innocent he is? I mean, this is a guy who's also given himself so much overwhelming power. Yeah. I'll say he wouldn't do that. The only reason I can think of as someone here on the ground floor would be there's more. Anyway, it doesn't look good. There's no way it looks good. That I will concede. The reality, though, might be that there might be international relations at hand that he's concerned with. There might be other people within the government that perhaps he, maybe releasing the list would look terrible for them, but he needs them for now. I don't know. But all I'm saying is that I'm not willing to jump to the immediate conclusion that he's now completely guilty and he's in on the whole thing. That's what I'll say.
I mean, Trump may have kicked Epstein out of some of his properties, but that does not mean that he was not still associated with him. He still could have been going to the island, and he still does have, you know, it's suspicious behavior. I hate to say that there's that old propaganda talking point, but it's true at this time. You have nothing to hide, then you have nothing to fear. And it's just like, what are you hiding? Like, I wouldn't.
Yeah, I absolutely, like I said, you know, it's not a good look. there's no denying that the mishandling of it definitely, like I said before, gave a lot of opportunities for his political opponents to poke holes in the kind of structure of the whole thing. I think I'm just going to reserve to wait and see how it plays out. If I never find out, that is damn unfortunate.
This has really been an issue that has sparked a lot of interest from a lot of people. There's a lot going on, and yet the Epstein thing, especially for folks on the right who typically do support Trump, some have veered from him. Why? There's so much going on. Why do people care about the Epstein files that much? Artem, I'd like to hear from you about that.
Yeah. I mean, it was just because it was at the best, it was a moment of incompetence. And in the worst case, you know, it's what's being suggested by Joey. But I think it's just the betrayal moment, you know, because even though I won't concede that he ran on it, yes, he did promise it, which I think is in and of itself a mistake. He did mention it several times, but when you say ran on it, I think it's more apt to say that Trump ran on bigger issues in the Epstein situation, you know, issues of the constitution of the country, like immigration and other, you know, economic situations. But people do feel betrayed, and that's why it blew up so much, because, you know, the right is kind of very, I don't even know how to describe it, but they like to they like mythological heroes, and they like to put their efforts behind one person, a leader, and so they saw Trump as this kind of opportunity. They saw it in him, not in the system, and so when he failed to deliver it, obviously, it cut deep with people. They did not like that, so.
I consider a candidate running on something as something that they're promising to the people that they're asking to elect them. So I think this was a promise he made. I consider that him running on it. And what I think it tells you, that even some of his Republican colleagues in Congress, I think 3 of them voted with Democrats the other day in the Oversight Committee to subpoena some information about this. I think what it shows you is that even when some of Donald Trump's henchmen are starting to turn on him, that kind of tells you how serious of a situation that this is, because there is a lot of this people look at him on the right like he is some type of hero, like he is some type of god almost, and that he's just going to come in and fix everything. And that's not the case. But they put so much behind him. When Donald Trump said the 2 words fake news, he gave himself more power than any one of those executive orders could give him that he signed. Because what he then did is make all of those people now only take the news from his mouth. And they just believe anything he says. So he runs on this promise. They say, great. Then he tries to diminish all of these files that he could possibly be in, unless he wants to release them and tell us otherwise. And then for the most part, though, a lot of people just accept it. And they say, okay, well, then maybe they don't exist. No, they do. The Attorney General herself has even now kind of clarified that they do. And I think until he releases them, more and more people, sure, Democrats and Republicans, are going to start to get increasingly upset by why the President of the United States is not willing to release this very important information that he promised and that he is possibly involved with.
Moving on from Epstein, I'm wondering, as a closing question, what could help in regaining trust in the government? What can our elected officials do to try to restore some trust from younger people? I'd like to hear just maybe 1 or 2 thoughts from each of you. Landina, and we'll go around.
I think that it should be focused on justice for all and one person, one vote. We are a democratic society, and we should start listening more to the people. And I would like to see that happen, so I want justice.
I think a great place to start is to get money out of politics. Members of Congress should not be allowed to trade stocks, should not be allowed to even hold stocks. They should not be taking money from corporate PACs and major corporations that can sway their votes on a number of things. To that point, they need to be listening to the people. They need to remember who elected them and who they are there to represent. And so I think if we want to restore trust to the government, we need to increase accessibility to things, to be transparent, right, to be forthcoming, like with the situation we were just speaking about. And we also need to have people feel confident and to feel trustful that the people in decision-making seats and the people in power care about the people that elected them and got them there and are doing the jobs that they took an oath to do. So I think we need to take money out of it, and they need to start focusing on the people again.
Yeah, I'll say that it's just deliver on your promises and accountability. Like, think about any other relationship you have in your life. If your friend promises you something, if a family member promises you something, and then they don't deliver on it, that makes you not trust their promises anymore, or any other words that they say that come out of their mouth, because you know they don't mean what they say. And then accountability, if they lie to you and you catch them in the lie, they take accountability for that, you know? These two things, like, it's really kind of an abusive relationship with our government at this point, where we catch them lying, they pretend to do something about it, nothing happens, and then after that, to make up for it, they promise something. It's like, oh, sweet, and then it just also never happens. So it's like, you have this situation where it's just not a healthy relationship by the most elementary definitions of that. And so I think they have to start treating themselves seriously, like other industries or other parts of our infrastructure are expected to, you know? If a company that made crucial parts for, you know, some crucial piece of infrastructure started behaving like the federal government, I mean, it would just explode. So I think for me, yeah, accountability, deliver on your promises. If you start doing that, you can start giving people some hope again. Other than that, I don't know.
Liberty and justice for all. That's what a country should be about, because that was the promise that was made originally when we founded it.
This has been a really meaningful discussion. Thank you all for participating.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Are you hopeful for your future? Tell us in the comments, like, and subscribe.